If you could just pull up the first slide, and then we'll be good to go. All right, so I'll qualify myself. Like she said, my name's Louis Essig. I am a Grandview grad. I've lived here my entire life. I graduated in 2009, so that makes me old. I'm 34. I don't feel old. I don't feel 34. I feel like 23. But as I sit here in front of you, I realize I'm kind of getting older. I do suffer from alcoholism and addiction. I consider it to be a disease. I've been sober since July 3rd, 2016. That means I have not picked up a drink or a drug since then. No mood or mind-altering substances have gone into my body for almost 9 years. And there's a reason for that, and I'll get into the reason for that. Like she said, I had a very normal upbringing, and I want to emphasize this, guys. Attending this school and growing up in this community is 100% a privilege. It is a privilege to sit in these seats and get the education you're getting and have the shoes on that you have on and the clothes and the nice houses. A lot of people don't get that, right? A lot of students do not get the opportunities that we get at Grandview. We are very, very lucky to have what we have here. So just real quick, this is some Lewis in elementary school. This is little Lewis. I think I broke my arm playing basketball. I tried to dunk. It did not go well. This is me on Christmas. This is, I think, from a yearbook. But I want to show you this so you can see that I was just a normal kid. Right? I was just a normal kid. It was never in my playbook to grow up one day. I didn't wake up one day like on Christmas here and say, you know what, when I grow up, I want to be an addict. I want to be an alcoholic, and I want to burn my life to the ground. That was not in my playbook at all. I will fast forward to 5th grade, and for me, that was the first time that I was introduced to any sort of educational material about drugs or alcohol, and it was D.A.R.E. You guys familiar with D.A.R.E? Do you know what D.A.R.E is? I know you don't do it anymore, right? Some of you, yes, some yeses, some no. Well, anyway, so in 5th grade, they used to come in and they would tell us, just say no. You guys know that term? Just say no, right? Don't drink, don't do drugs, just say no. And as a 5th grader, what I took away from that was that if I picked up a drink or I used a drug, there were going to be consequences. And not only were there going to be consequences, but they were going to be immediate consequences. So for instance, if I went to a party, when I wake up the next day, my life is going to be burned to the ground. That's what I took away from D.A.R.E. That's what they taught me. Unfortunately, that's not how the disease of alcoholism works. So we'll fast forward to 8th grade, where you guys are at now. I sat in your seats. And I will admit to you as a grown man that I was nervous and anxious going into high school, And I was nervous and I was anxious because I wanted to fit in and belong, right? Is that fair to say that you guys probably all want to find a place where you fit in, belong, friend group, sports, whatever the case may be? I had so much anxiety and I was so nervous about it. I didn't know what to do, And my freshman year rolled around. And believe it or not, I did fine. I didn't drink or use. I made honor roll. It was the only time I made honor roll in high school, but you can't take that from me. It's mine forever. I played sports. I went to class, got good grades. Everything was totally fine, right? And the reason I didn't drink my freshman year or use a drug was because of D.A.R.E. I remember them telling me, if you do this, well, you're going to ruin your life, and it's going to happen immediately. So we'll fast forward to sophomore year. And is it safe to say that in Grandview, everybody knows everyone's business? Is that, you get a pretty small community? Yeah? Okay, great, okay. So you guys are all K through 12 together, right? You guys all grow up, kindergarten until you graduate for the most part?
We have a couple new students.
Okay, yeah, some transfers or some, but for the most part, it's, you all grow up together. You all do this school thing together. You graduate together. And I remember my sophomore year, I started to watch some of my friends who I had known my whole life go out to parties. And they'd go out to these parties and they'd drink some beer, or they'd, take some shots and they'd smoke some weed. And they'd come back to school Monday and, oh my God, everything was fine. How is that possible? D.A.R.E told me that my life was gonna be destroyed if I did that. And so I'm watching my best friends go to these parties and come back to school, and it appears that there's no consequences. So Thanksgiving break, my sophomore year, I decided that I was gonna go and drink and go to a party, and I did. I went, I drank some beers, I smoked some weed, and I came back to school Monday, and lo and behold, there were no consequences. Cops didn't come to the party, parents didn't catch me, nothing went wrong. This is me in high school, so this is the Bieber haircut era, my freshman year, played golf. This is my senior year, spoiler alert, I'm high in this photo. This is my junior year prom, I'm high in this photo. You would never know though. I look like a perfectly normal, I look like you guys. I look like a perfectly normal student, right? You would have no idea that anything was going on behind the scenes. And I tried to hide it as best I could, right? I had that drink sophomore year and I came back to school and I was like, well, D.A.R.E lied to me. They lied. They said my life was gonna be destroyed and it's not. So what I'll do is I'll do this once a month, or I'll do this once every 2 months. I'll go to a party, right? I felt like I fit in. I felt like I belong. It's so weird in high school. High school feels like the most important thing in the world when you're in it. Those 4 years feel so long, but like it feels like your entire world, right? I'm here to tell you that after you graduate, that's not the case. Everybody goes their separate ways and gets jobs. And, my plan was to graduate high school, get a degree, marry somebody, have kids, have a nice white picket fence house here in Grandview and have kids of my own and just have a normal life. That was my plan, okay? By junior year, it wasn't once a month. And now we're talking, maybe 2 to 3 times a month, every weekend almost. I'm going out, I'm drinking, I'm partying, I'm smoking weed. I'll tell you guys this, I was introduced to Adderall my junior year. And I want to educate you guys because it's important. So I was given an Adderall to study, right? Because it helps me study, which is just not true unless you're prescribed it. But I wasn't prescribed it, and I was given an Adderall, whatever, I took it, doesn't matter. My point is, say one of you guys pick up an Adderall because you have an exam coming up, okay? And you pick it up from your friend who has a prescription, and let's say you're driving down First Avenue and you forget to hit your blinker to turn left and there's a cop behind you and you get pulled over, right? And you have this Adderall that's not prescribed to you and it's in your center console. You're just trying to get it home. And the cops search your car and they find it. That is a felony drug possession charge. And that will live with you for quite some time. And I'm here to tell you that there are major consequences that come with felonies. People do not look at you the same after you've been convicted of a felony. It's unfortunate, but it's true. Same thing with a Percocet or a Vicodin, right? You get a Percocet or a Vicodin off a buddy who maybe had a sports injury. It's not yours, not prescribed. To get pulled over with it, caught with it, that's a felony. It takes one pill. You don't have to have a bunch of pills, just one, and you can get charged with a felony. I do also want to let you know alcoholism does run in my family. So my mom died of an overdose 5 years ago, direct result of addiction and alcoholism. My grandfather drank himself to death, cirrhosis of the liver. My grandmother on my mom's side also died because of alcoholism. So it's in my blood, but as a kid, I had no idea I was susceptible to it. I didn't know that I had certain genetics that meant if I picked up a drink or a drug, that I wasn't gonna be able to stop. I had no idea as a kid. And so, I'm moving through high school and I get to senior year, and I always tell people that by the time I was a senior, I was a professional drug addict, alcoholic. I used something nearly every single day. every single day. Open lunches weren't for lunch, guys. Open lunches weren't for McDonald's or Taco Bell. Open lunches for Lewis were to go out and smoke some weed before class. Like, that's what my life looked like growing up in high school. And you might say to yourself, that's wild. Why would anybody do that? You're in 8th grade now. I promise you, as you move through high school, you'll start to see some of these things that I'm talking about, if you haven't already. And I'm sure some of you have, right? I'm sure some of you have seen things or heard things. You'll see it. You'll see it. I decided that I was going to go to, well, actually, I only applied to one college, and it was Ohio University. Does anybody want to take a guess at why I applied at that college?
Big party college.
Boom, spot on, my man right here. They have the best Halloween party ever. And so I was like, well, I love partying, right? And they have a great Halloween party, so that's where I'm going to go to school. Fortunately for me, my grades were just good enough that I was able to get in. And I did. And that summer, I graduated in 2009, like I said. That summer, I was introduced to opiates. Percocet, they were Oxycontin back then. I don't know if you guys have seen documentaries on TV about it or anything like that, or familiar with Oxycontin. But I was introduced to Oxycontin, and I started using them, and I loved them. You know, I was looking for anything to get out of Lewis's head, or anything that made me feel like I fit in, right? If I could use pills with a buddy, or whatever the case may be, or if I could sell pills to a buddy, like that made me feel good. It made me feel needed. It made me feel wanted. It made me feel a part of, popular, whatever you want to call it. And unfortunately for me, as an 18-year-old, I had no idea what I was truly putting in my body. And with opiates, you can become physically dependent on them. So if you take opiates for too many days in a row, and then you stop, you're going to get sick, like physically ill. So I describe it as like the flu, kind of, times 5. And then there's like the depression that comes with it, and a ton of anxiety. You can't sleep when you don't have the pills. It is an awful experience. I was physically dependent on opiates by the time I got down to Ohio University. So I get down there, and they were quarterly back then. I dropped out after 2 quarters. I called Dad, and I said, Dad, I can't do it. College isn't for me. I sold him some story about how I was going to come home and get a job, and just college wasn't for me. That wasn't the truth. The truth was I had a drug problem, and I didn't know how to quit. But I was too scared to ask for help or like bring anything up about it. And that's why I'm here today, because we think in Grandview that it can't happen here. Right? We're in this perfect little bubble, this great little community. The drugs and alcohol aren't a problem here. You know, I'm here to tell you that it can happen anywhere. I've probably lost 6 or 7 friends that, you know, I went to school with to this disease that passed away from overdoses. It is also a lot more dangerous out there today than it was when I was using. Fentanyl, you guys know what fentanyl is? Yeah. I'm assuming, yeah. I mean, it is in everything now. It is in everything. They put it in pills, they press pills, they put it in cocaine, sometimes they put it in weed, and it can kill you, and it will kill you. So I get down to OU, I drop out. I come back home, I get a job at Five Guys over on 5th Avenue. That was just so I could like pretend I was doing something, like tell my dad and my mom, like, see, I'm working, like I have a job, I'm working. But really what I wanted to do was just come home and, you know, drink and use the way I wanted to, maybe sell some stuff on the side, make a little extra money. And that's how I thought I was going to live my life. And I mentioned earlier the privilege of growing up in Grandview. To have an opportunity to go to a good school like Ohio University and throw it away after 2 quarters, not a good idea. Terrible decision on my part. I wish I could take it back, but I can't. You know, I dropped out, and that was a direct result of my disease. So I come back, like I said, I'm working at Five Guys, I'm using pills. Around 2011, heroin hit the streets. And that word is a strong word, right? That's a word that when you think about Grandview, you don't think heroin, right? What do you guys think a heroin addict looks like? What's like in your mind, what does a stereotypical heroin addict look like to you? Like what?
A Seattle homeless person.
Oh, that's okay. That's kind of good because that's kind of what I thought. That's actually really close. That's really good because in my mind, like it was like that guy behind the dumpster or who had like the shopping cart, right, with all the stuff in it, and he's obviously homeless. Like that's what I thought a heroin addict looked like. But nonetheless, I pick up heroin and I start using heroin. And when I tell you my life began to spiral so fast, I couldn't keep up. It's 100% the truth. All my friends from high school and college were gone because Lewis was no longer fun to party with. Lewis was now a problem. Lewis was dangerous now, right? I couldn't keep $1 in my pocket because every single dollar I spent went to drugs and alcohol. I couldn't keep a job, right? Because if I didn't have my drugs, I'm sick, and then I'm calling off all the time. And so for those reasons, I had nothing. I had absolutely nothing. And when you get to that point where you can't keep a job and you've got nothing in your life, you can flip to the next slide here. You start committing crimes to make money. And I kind of put these in order for a reason. You can tell this is kind of one of my first arrests because I look a little younger and not as rough. And then as we go down, I mean, you can almost see the life getting sucked out of my eyes as we progress here, right? And so since I had nothing, I started committing crimes, and I would find myself down in the county jail. And I'm here to tell you guys that is not a place you want to find yourself, especially not growing up in Grandview, because you're going to be in there with people who have committed armed robbery, burglary, in some cases murder. It's a dangerous, scary place to be. I was terrified, right? Because this is like a nice, safe place to live. Like, you know what I mean? You don't really have to worry about certain things like that. But in jail, the rules are different. And I was scared to death. But I couldn't stop drinking and using. I couldn't stop. I could not stop. And so the revolving door began. You know, I would commit petty thefts. I'd like shoplift for some money, or I'd like, you know, break into cars for some money, or whatever the case may be. And ultimately, that's what drug addiction leads to. It leads to crime. And leads to crime because you need money to pay for your habit, right? So I'm doing all this. I'm going to jail. I'm in and out. And the scary thing, guys, is that it became normal to me. Jail became normal. I learned the etiquette of jail. I learned how to move in jail. And when I would get arrested, it just started to become not a big deal. And that's not normal at all. That is not a normal thing that a human should think that, oh, yep, off to jail again, whatever. I'll get out when I get out. But that's where I was at that point in my life. You know, I'm 23, 24 years old. Eventually, Dad kicked me out. I found myself homeless. Honestly, he should have kicked me out sooner. I wish he had, but you know, everything happens for a reason. And I'll never forget that first night homeless. I had a sleeping bag and the clothes on my back. And I went and found this like little wooded area. We had moved out of Grandview at the time. And I laid my sleeping bag down in the woods. And I was getting ready for bed. I lay down, go to sleep. Wake up, 2, 3 in the morning, and it's pouring down rain. And I have like no tent. I have nothing covering me. And I just like pull the sleeping bag over my head because that's all I had to kind of like shield myself from the rain. And I remember laying there and just thinking like, how did you end up here? Like it doesn't make sense. I've painted this picture for you guys. I was a good kid. I was a good student. I'm not stupid. I got good grades. I got into college. And there I was, homeless, strung out, in a sleeping bag, getting rained on, getting poured on. And the math just didn't add up. Because like I said, it wasn't in my playbook to be a drug addict when I grew up. That wasn't my plan. Eventually, I'd get picked up for the last time. I'd go to jail. I did 5 months straight that time. went to court, and I was convicted of multiple felony charges, as well as just a multitude of misdemeanors. It was a laundry list of charges that I was convicted of. And that changed my life forever, and not in a good way. So my last stint in jail, I got released, and I decided I was going to get sober. Like I said, my sobriety date is July 3rd, 2016. So, again, that's almost 9 years without a drink or a drug. The first job I got was at Donato's Pizza, and I was shocked they hired me. I couldn't believe that Donato's hired me with my criminal record, but they did. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I really got to go above and beyond here because I have all these, strikes against me, right? I'm an addict, I've got felony charges, like I've got to work really hard if I want to make this work. And I'm working at Donato's. I'm making $7 an hour. And I went for a management spot. And because of how hard I worked, they considered me until the district manager came in and I told him I had felony convictions. And then he said, nope, you can't manage a Donato's Pizza with a felony. Absolutely not. And that blew my mind. I could not believe that my past was hanging over my head to a point where I couldn't manage a pizza shop, like that I wasn't capable or something. It was wild. And then I'd run into housing issues, right? So like I wanted to go rent an apartment. And unfortunately, there's a little box on there that says, are you a convicted felon? And I would have to check yes, because they run background checks. I couldn't find, no one would rent to me. I couldn't find a place to live. So I'd like go into these tours of these apartments and I'd ask the guy like, hey, do you rent to felons? He'd say no. I'd shake his hand and walk out the door. I mean, it took me a while to find a place to live. And eventually I found this like Section 8 housing complex that gave me a shot. And when I tell you, like we're talking like roaches and stuff, like that's where I was living. It was the only place that would rent to me. It was hard. It was really, really hard. And I guess I tell you that stuff because you can look at me today and say, like, oh, he's all clean cut now. He's wearing nice clothes. He's got a nice watch. He speaks well, right? He made it back. Couldn't have been that difficult. No. It's difficult to come back. In fact, most don't make it back. Like I said, I've lost 6 or 7 friends from Grandview to this disease. I remember I spoke in a jail, this might have been about a year ago now, and I'm speaking to the guys, and this kid stops me. And he goes, did you go to Grandview? I said, yeah, I did. He said, me too. And there was another Grandview student sitting right there in front of me in jail. Actually, I went to a funeral a couple months ago of a Grandview kid who graduated, I want to say 2018, 2019, died as a direct result of this disease. It's deadly. It kills people. After the Donato's thing, I ended up going and working at La Tavola over on First Avenue and Lupo in Arlington. They're owned by the Lopez's. I'm sure you guys know them. And I ended up becoming a pretty good server, and I started making good money. And then 2020 rolled around and COVID hit, and my job was gone. Poof. I had worked my way up. I was like, all right, you're building a life. I like bought a car by then, trying to rebuild, and then my life, or my job was just gone. It was just gone because of COVID, something that you couldn't predict. And so now I'm back in a place where it's like, great, now I've got these criminal convictions and I've got to find a new job. And that's when I decided I was going to start giving back. And I went and I applied to work at the correctional facility that I was once incarcerated at, and they hired me. And I worked there for a couple of years, and I ended up getting very lucky, and today I work for ABC6. I do marketing and sales. How that happened, I couldn't tell you. All I know is I stayed sober and didn't drink and didn't use, and I kept fighting. I heard something early on that I like to share with you guys, that not drinking and not using drugs gives you a competitive edge in life. And I really liked that because I'm a competitor. I don't know about you guys. You guys like to win, or do you like to lose? Or You like to get good grades, or you like any winners in here? Anybody? Competitors? Couple? Okay, cool. Well, anyway, I'm a huge,
Can I have Lexi Gons to the office? She's leaving for an appointment. Thank you.
So I'm a competitor. I don't like to lose. And when I heard that, I was like, oh my God, so if I don't drink or use drugs, I'm gonna have a competitive edge in life. What does that mean? And I quickly found out that it meant, and I'll give you an example. I'll take my man right here in the green. So let's say you and I are gonna go for a job. We're going for the same job. I'll give you two scenarios here. First scenario is you graduate from college, right? You've got a degree. You've not gotten in trouble once in your life. You've done everything right, okay? Me, on the other hand, I've got criminal convictions, but I've got sales experience. Say we're going for a sales job. You've never worked in sales, but you got a degree, and I'm a sales monster. I go into the interview, I kill it. You go in, you do okay, right? Who are they gonna pick? They're gonna pick you. Even though I'm the best, say I'm the best sales guy in the city, they're gonna see that criminal record and say, nope, we're not taking a chance on him. No way, no way, no how. You're getting the job. Second scenario, let's say these two right here. Same thing. You're doing everything right. You got a job interview Monday morning, 8:30, okay? You prepare for your interview, you go to bed early, you do everything you're supposed to do. My man to the right says, I'm gonna go out Sunday and have a couple beers. I'm gonna go have a couple beers and get drunk. And he wakes up late, and he's hungover, and he's disheveled, and you guys both have the same credentials and go for the same job. Who's gonna have a better interview? You. And you're gonna get the job. And that's that competitive edge that I'm talking about, right? I wish so badly that I was the kid in high school, because high school, when you're in it, it seems so, it's the 4 years it's so important to, fit in and make friends and belong, and it seems like it's 8 years, and it's never gonna end, and then you graduate and you all go your separate ways, right? I wish so badly that I had been the kid that didn't care what people thought of me, worked hard, studied, passed all my tests, got into a good school, stayed in school, didn't pick up a drink or a drug. Obviously, I'm not here to tell you if you're alcoholic or not. I can't know that, right? I can't know that if you pick up a drink or a drug, you're gonna end up like me. I can't know that. But the question you have to ask yourself is it worth the chance, right? Is it worth the chance to get that Adderall to study and maybe get pulled over and get a felony? Is it worth the chance to pick up a drink not knowing, and then you can't stop and you end up in jail like me, or you end up and you might say to yourself, no way, I'd never cross that line in the sand. I said the same thing. I said the exact same thing. It started with, I'll just smoke weed and just drink. And then it was like, okay, I'll dabble in some Adderall or this. And then it was, okay, I'll do some pills. And then it was, okay, I'll do heroin. So I'm like crossing these lines that I'd set for myself in the sand, and it just keeps getting, I'll never use a needle. I did. I was an intravenous drug user. And then it went to cocaine and crack. And I mean, all that stuff that you guys learn about, all the drugs you learn about, I did them all. It took complete control of my life. And like I said, you can see, there's like no life in my eyes. It's a completely different person from the person you're looking at today. A couple of things about where I'm at today, and like reservations that I had about drugs and alcohol. So I mentioned my mom passing away. She passed away 5 years ago of an overdose. I was sober. I was able to stay sober through that. I'm fortunate for that. I lost my dad to cancer in October of 2023, so I no longer have parents at 34 years old. Didn't have to drink or use over that. One of my biggest reservations was, how am I gonna go to, on a vacation and sit on a beach and not have a drink? How am I gonna do that? That's not, how am I gonna have fun without alcohol? I have had so much more fun without drugs and alcohol because I'm present for everything. I'm aware. I remember everything. I'm present. And I'll give you guys an example. My last job, I was a top sales performer in the company, top 10 performer, and they sent us to the Bahamas. And 9 out of the 10, me being the 10th person, they all sat by the pool and drank the entire time. They all just sat by the pool and drank. That's what they did. That was their whole vacation. I went out, I snorkeled, I went and fed the pigs apples on a private beach. I explored the resort. I went into town and ate the local food, met some locals. Nobody else did any of that. They all sat around and drank. And I went and lived my life. Like, I went and had fun. It was so, I've been to Vegas sober. Gambled a little bit, went to some shows, saw Kevin Hart. Didn't have to have a drink or a drug. Just as fun, more fun than alcohol. I remembered it. I was present for all of it. It was a very long, painful journey back, and I always relate it to this. I thought I had all the answers. Lewis always thought he was the smartest guy in the room, that I had everything figured out, that I'll turn this thing around whenever, and it wasn't until I started taking suggestions from people that my life started to change. And so, like, you know when your parents tell you stuff like, hey, don't do this, and you're like, yeah, whatever, mom and dad, you know, or hey, make sure you're on time to school, or make sure whatever, you know, the advice your parents give you all the time, and you're a kid, and you're like, yeah, sure, probably. I actually started to listen to people. And lo and behold, my life got better. And so my life today, like I said, I work at ABC6. I live in Grandview still. I have a beautiful girlfriend, a beautiful life. I'm very fortunate for that. But statistically speaking, most people don't end up where I end up. Most people don't end up in the place I'm in, sober, thriving. I've overdosed 3 times. I've been brought back 3 times to life. The 3rd time I overdosed, I mean, I was seconds away from passing away. If the neighbors had not found me passed out, face down in the lawn, and called the squad and Narcaned me and brought me back, I'm not standing here in front of you today. I'm gone. And when you're gone, you don't come back. There's no second chance. You know, so as you move into high school, just consider those things. This isn't Scared Straight. This isn't me coming here trying to scare you. This is me coming here telling you my story so that when you see these things, and you will if you haven't already, maybe you'll think twice. Maybe you'll think about this guy. Or maybe you'll think about this guy, right? Who explained the competitive edge and how beautiful his life is today without drugs and alcohol. Okay? Is it worth the risk? Is what you have to ask yourself. That's all I have. Q&A is my favorite part, so I'm going to open up the floor for questions. And please do not be shy. Ask me anything you want. I promise staff is okay with it. Shoot. And by the way, I can sit in dead silence for as long as you guys need to if you take. Go ahead.
This might be a silly question, but what you said about having like someone else's prescription doesn't apply to like parents picking up stuff, right?
What do you mean?
Like if my mom runs through the drive-thru at CVS, that doesn't apply.
To pick up your prescription?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're good.
Okay.
Yeah, no, totally different. Yes.
Where did you like get most of your drugs at?
Grandview. Yeah, and a lot of people think that, like, I don't know what it is about the suburban communities, the Upper Arlingtons, the Bexleys, the Grandviews, that they think that like there's some kind of immunity, like, oh no, we're so well off that would never happen. But in reality, what's happening is people are having these issues, but they're hiding it. They're hiding it because they're embarrassed and they don't want other parents to frown upon their kid or frown upon them or whatever the case may be. So I hope that answers your question. This one. Yes.
Did you ever get any references for jobs that would have helped you get a job?
Yeah, actually, once the job I have now was, I had a reference. I did get my record expunged and sealed. So technically, if you run a background check on me now, there's nothing there. But I did have a reference, and that's how I got the job I have today. If I had gone in there cold, like no reference, and I had had that criminal record, they would have laughed me out of the building, unfortunately. That's just the truth. That's just society. That's what it is. Great question. Yes?
How did you get rid of your criminal record?
I had an attorney actually who, I grew up with this kid here in Grandview, and his daughter actually is a public defender at the courthouse, and he did it for me for free. I do a lot of giving back in the community. I speak to like parents too about this stuff, especially in Grandview, and he just, out of the kindness of his heart, took care of it for me. So I got very lucky because it's expensive otherwise. Yes?
How did you stop like using and abusing drugs?
Jail. I never went to treatment. I could not get myself to go to treatment. I don't know why. I couldn't do it. I always tell people I had to be handcuffed and taken off the street in order to stop. And when a judge threatened me with 5 years in prison, I talked to my attorney and I said, hey man, can you get me some help? And they put me in a program, and I listened to everything that I was taught, and I took suggestions. I stopped being like the man, the guy with all the answers, the smartest guy in the room, and just kind of listened and took suggestions, and that's when things changed. That's when I got sober. Yes?
Like when you said you were like high in those photos, to like what extent did your parents know what was going on?
Good question. So I got caught, I want to say I got caught like twice drinking. The first time was like, so my dad was a Vietnam vet. He got drafted into Vietnam. He was a very much like pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of guy, figure it out. And I came home drunk that night, fell asleep, woke up the next day on the couch, and he was like, how you feeling, Lou? Feeling good? And I was like, no, I feel terrible, hungover. That was one time they caught me. Other than that, I mean, I didn't really see consequences until long after high school. I should have been caught in high school. I can tell you that right now. The things I was doing every single day, I just didn't get in trouble until down the road. And that's where that whole like D.A.R.E piece was disconnected from reality, right? Because I thought it was going to be immediate, and it wasn't. It was years later that I faced the serious consequences. Yes?
What did you overdose from?
It was heroin or fentanyl. I don't know what was in it, quite frankly. I mean, I thought it was heroin, but it very well could have been fentanyl all 3 times. Opiates, yeah. So thank God for Narcan. There was actually a student in here earlier. He said his brother carries a Narcan with his backpack. He's in college now, and yeah, it's. I'm glad that exists because I wouldn't be here without it. Come on,
You
guys.
guys can take a couple seconds while we're listening to like give the feedback on the paper. That would be really helpful.
Yeah, go ahead.
While you're listening.
Was there anything else other than drugs that made you want to drop out of college?
I think that like part of it was that same feeling of like anxiety and nervousness that I felt from 8th grade moving into high school. Like, because it was the same jump, right? I'm going from high school to college, and in Grandview, I was somebody by that point. But once I got down to Athens, I was nobody again. And so between the drugs and the alcohol and me feeling like I didn't belong, I couldn't take it. I could not do it. I passed my classes, but I was so uncomfortable, I couldn't do it. And that's why I dropped out. Yeah.
Did you end up going to parties at OU?
The parties at OU?
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course I did. Well, I mean, I was there 2 quarters, and I picked that school because it was the Halloween party. So, yeah, I went to some parties at OU, and I'm here to tell you that they're really gross. And, you know, it's just, I just wish I had done it the right way. Go ahead.
Do you ever think you'll go back to college?
It's a good question. I've thought about it, and I certainly could. I've somehow managed to land the job that, and it's funny, I talk to my friends about it all the time. Like, the job I have now is the job that people go to school for and like get degrees for and like work really hard to get, and somehow I landed it. So, you know, my hopes is that I can continue doing sales. I'm pretty okay at sales, and, you know, do that, and that'll be my career. Thank you, guys.